morning, Frederick Fox in our back, reception, parties and counsel are present. All members of our jury and our office are present. Our witness is back on the witness stand. And Mr. Doherty, you may resume your examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective DuGal, I believe when we left off, we were looking at Exhibit 66. I'm going to turn your attention to Exhibit 67. Is that a close-up of the checks that were located in the office, or in the office area of the Fallbrook residence?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And that was placarded and photographed by Ms. Williams at your direction?
That's right.
I'm going to turn your attention to Exhibit 19. And ask you if you recognize what that is a depiction of.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, it's drawn up by our criminalists. On top of the forensic evidence tech, Dennis Williams, there's a criminalist who accompanies us to the scene. I believe it was Dana Castro. I'm not positive which criminalist I had for them. And they draw I request a crime scene sketch or a scene sketch.
Okay, and in particular, is this a sketch of the upstairs of the Avocado Vista Lane residence?
It is.
Okay, can you kind of go through what we're seeing in the middle there? It looks like maybe stairs.
Right, so this is the stairway leading to the upstairs from the, well, obviously from the downstairs. It comes up to the second floor into the bonus room. The master bedroom was, I believe, can you come down a little bit? I think it's
Sure.
Master bedroom up in this corner, and master bath, and other bedrooms, all up on the upstairs.
Okay. So in particular, I'm going to point your attention to the upper left hand of the diagram. So the master bathroom was right off the master bedroom?
Yes.
And it looks like as you walk in, there's dual sinks to the left.
Yes.
And then to the right was what?
To the right of the sinks?
Well, as you're walking in, so directly across from the sinks.
Oh, the bathtub area and shower area.
Okay. And then the toilet would be to the right.
And the toilet was walled off. It's a closet toilet.
I'll show you what's been marked as Exhibit 110. Ask if you recognize that. If so, what is it?
I do. It is the walled off toilet area in the master bedroom, master bath.
Also appears to be a stool and a rag here, or a washcloth here on the bottom right.
Yes.
You know what's in the trash can?
I don't, because I didn't search this particular area. I had another detective search this area, and I can tell you no items of evidentiary value were pointed out to me.
Show you Exhibit 113. Ask you to rate that as what that is and where it was.
This is child's clothing. It's a onesie, or just above a onesie, and it was located on the crime scene, or the scene sketch, in the master bath. There's two sinks. This is, as you're facing the sinks, this is the left sink, and it's left of the left sink.
Now, this appears to be sponges and towels,
Yes.
or at least one towel or some kind of wash rag.
Yes.
And Exhibit number 115. Ask you to recognize that, and if so, what is it?
I do. It's children's clothing on the floor for a child bigger than a onesie.
Okay. And where was that clothing located?
That is right at the below the sinks. So this is sort of in front of the right-hand sink in the master bath.
I notice in the photograph, there appears to be some paint here on the camouflage pants. On the bottom.
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
Does there appear to be paint?
Yes, that appears to be white paint.
inspection meeting.
Oh,
So if I return to the Exhibit 19, where was that clothing in relation to where it says master bathroom?
So the onesie clothing,
Yes.
the onesie clothing was located right in this area, up on the, next to the sink. And the larger child clothing was essentially right in this area on the floor in front of the other sink across from the bath.
For the record, that's just below, you made a circle just below the M, master bathroom.
Yes,
And then it looks like 2 sinks below where it says master bathroom, pointing to the right is where the onesie was located.
yes.
Did you utilize what are called cadaver dogs?
I did.
Why did you utilize them, and what are they?
Cadaver dogs are frequently used when we're searching for any sign of decomposition, a body that's decomposing, and they're traditionally used for grave sites, burials, that kind of thing. I called in the cadaver dogs to search the property and the surrounding area. The dog is trained to use its senses to sniff out decomposition, and the dog will alert if it senses decomposition.
Decomposition after death takes some time.
Takes some time.
Where did the cadaver dogs come inside of that residence?
I don't believe they ever entered the residence. They were in the backyard, and I know we had the sliding glass door open, but I don't think they came in.
Did you, after the search warrant, during the course of the search warrant, collect items from the house?
I did.
Okay. I'm going to go through some of the items you collected. Did you collect a thumb drive that was labeled Joseph from the living room area?
Yes.
Did you collect a Nikon camera and a Kodak camera that were in the pantry and the kitchen?
Yes.
Did you collect a laptop computer that was located in the kitchen?
Yes.
Did you collect an E-machine computer tower from the office area?
Yes.
Did you collect an HP tower computer from the desk in the office?
Yes.
You remember which one, were they both hooked up, or was one under the desk and one away from the desk?
In the den area, the one under the desk was, I believe it was hooked up. I believe Michael hooked it back up. That's the one he had removed from the residence. And then the other one, there was another computer in the room that was also hooked up and had a Mad Jack, some kind of phone system going to it.
Both of those were collected.
Yes.
What did you do with those?
When we collect electronic storage media, I use the FBI laboratory. It's called the Regional Computer Forensics Laboratory, RCFL.
I'm sorry, say again? Laboratory?
RCFL. And I turn that evidence in, and I request that all evidence be scanned, and I put in keywords, and we search the digital formats. And the FBI searches it, and then responds to me with what they find.
Did you do the same thing with regard to the laptop that was found in the kitchen?
Yes.
And the thumb drive?
Yes.
Did you also find various cell phones in the residence?
There were various cell phones in the residence.
Okay. And in particular, was there a T-Mobile cell phone in the closet in the office?
Yes.
And a Nokia cell phone in the closet in the master bedroom?
Yes.
Did you also find, during the course of your search, a computer hard drive
I did.
in the closet in the office?
Yes.
Did you also search, I think you believe you indicated yesterday, your search warrant included the green Dodge Ram that was in front of the residence?
We did search that.
Okay. What did you see just generally in the Dodge?
The Dodge, there was nothing unusual about the Dodge. There was some of Joseph's soccer gear on the back rear floorboard. I assumed it was Joseph's. It was right size for Joseph, and in the vehicle that belongs to Joseph and Summer. There was also indication of kids' toys, and I think there was some little parts of clothing that would have related to the children. but there were no car seats in the Dodge, and it was just how you'd expect it to be.
Did you recover from the Dodge a video camera?
Yes.
And also in the house, did you recover a Nikon camera and a Kodak camera? Did I ever ask you about that?
You did.
In the pantry and the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay. Are those processed the same way as the computers?
They are. If they have a memory card in them, they're pulled, and then the memory card is processed by our CFL.
During your search of the residence, were you ever able to locate any keys to the Isuzu Trooper?
I did not find keys to the Trooper.
Did you find keys to the Dodge?
I don't remember finding keys to the Dodge.
Were you ever able to locate Joseph and Summers, the cell phones they were using at the time in February of 2010?
No.
During the course of your investigation, were you able to locate ever the cell phones that Joseph and Summers were using?
No.
Were you ever able to locate during the course of your investigation the keys to the Trooper?
No.
Okay, turning your attention to the next day, February 20th. What did you do with regards to your investigation on that Saturday?
That one I'm going to have to refer to my notes.
Did you process the Trooper on the 20th, on the Saturday?
Oh, yes.
Okay. At that point, where was the Trooper when it was processed?
So I'd already told you on February 15th, we determined the Trooper was in storage in the South Bay area of San Diego. On the 16th, I collected that Trooper, seized it as evidence, and that was put on a flatbed trailer without being opened, and it was brought to the Sheriff's Crime Laboratory in San Diego. It was put into a secured garage, and then I wrote the search warrant. The search warrant was approved, and I served the search warrant on the 20th to process the Trooper in the garage with forensic evidence technician Dennis Williams.
You said that in the Dodge there were no child seats, safety restraints. Were there in the Trooper?
Yes, there were.
How many?
2.
We'll have Ms. Williams describe the processing. Can you just generally describe what you found or what you saw, what you recall seeing in the Trooper on the 20th?
Sure. So the Trooper was locked. We got a man to come out and open the Trooper. Once again, just like the house, I had explained to you guys how I used Dennis Williams to photograph the house before we make entry and do anything. Same thing happens with the vehicle. Scene photos are taken out from the exterior of the vehicle. Then we make entry into the vehicle. Photographs are taken of the interior of the vehicle from all 4 doors and the tailgate. Just looking into the vehicle, there was a couple of like coffee mugs in the center console. I took note of seat positions, including the child restraint seats in the back. In the storage area in the back of the Trooper, there was a white sheet that was covering, we didn't know, it was covering from the outside. It just looked like large bulk items, and we eventually uncovered that, and it turned out to be some toys, some large toys.
That was on February 20th?
Yes.
For the record, I don't think I made a record of this yesterday. I'm marking on Exhibit 568 and in orange. And mine's the only markings in orange. Backing up to the search of the house, why didn't you ask that the cadaver dogs be brought into the house?
There were no signs of, we had no signs of criminal activity in the house that we recognized. Cadaver dogs are going to, once again, look for decomposition. Decomposition is when a body is decomposing over days. I had no indication that there were remains in the house, so we didn't enter the dogs into the house.
Did you tear up any carpet, do anything like that at the house?
No. Part of the search process is obviously to look for a crime scene, to find evidence of a crime, and we did not. And once you find evidence of a crime, if you find evidence of a crime, you can dig deeper. You can do more chemical testing. You can tear carpet up. You can cut walls out if you need to. But just in general, if you just go in and you look around and it looks normal, we don't cut walls and pull carpet. We just don't. That's not a traditional search, and especially in a missing persons case.
Were you able to obtain cell phone records for Joseph McStay and Summer McStay?
I was.
And did you identify Joseph's cell phone number at the time in February of 2010 as 949-295-7451?
Yes, and that's from witnesses, Mike McStay and family members.
Did you obtain Summer's cell phone as being 949-295-6411?
Yes.
How did you get those records?
So once I get the telephone numbers, we have a crime analyst within the homicide unit. I supply the telephone numbers to the crime analyst. Crime analyst runs the telephone numbers just to see who the cell phone provider is based on that telephone number. That information comes back without search warrant. So in this case, I believe it was T-Mobile. And once I have the service provider, I write a search warrant specifically to that service provider for those two telephone numbers. And that's what I did in this case, plus the residential telephone number.
I was just going to ask about the home phone number as well. Okay. Did you review the records that you received from those search warrants?
I did.
And what was the last known contact for Joseph McStay's cell phone? When was it?
I'm going to take a look at my notes right here. For Joseph's cell phone outgoing is February 4th at 2028, which is 8:28 p.m. And that was a very short telephone call, 1 minute or less.
And how about Summers? When was her last?
Summer's last outgoing telephone call was February 4th at 14:11 hours, which is 2:11 p.m.
How about the home phone?
The last outgoing telephone call from the McStay residence was going from the residence to Joseph's cellular telephone. It was at 16:25 p.m. 16:25 hours, which is 4:25 p.m.
Aside from the phone records for Joseph and Summer and the home phone records, did you obtain Charles Merritt's cell phone records?
No,
Did you obtain, why not?
it's a good question. So as I've explained to you, I'm bound by the California Penal Code on search warrants. I got the search warrant for the residence. I got the search warrant for the McStay vehicles. To go outside of that to look for another person. In this case, he's asked me about the defendant. How could I match those records that I have indicating that, there's the defendant's phone number was called or called in that day. I have to have probable cause. Once again, I've explained that to you. Probable cause to believe that he was involved in the disappearance of the McStays, and that he was involved in the crime. I didn't have probable cause to believe that he had committed a crime at that point.
Did you, as part of your obtaining the cell phone records, did you obtain the voicemail messages from Joseph's cell phone and Summer's cell phone?
I did.
Did you review those messages?
I did.
Let's start with Joseph's cell phone. Were there calls from the defendant, voicemails from the defendant on Joseph's cell phone indicating, hey, I just wrote some checks and just wanted to let you know I was doing that?
There were none.
Was there any voicemails at all from Joseph's cell phone? I'm sorry, from the defendant on Joseph's cell phone?
No.
Were there voicemails?
Yes, it was full.
Were you able to figure out a likely time when those voicemails were delivered?
Yes.
How were you able to do that? Describe that, please.
So when I receive the voice messages from the cell phone company, I get to listen to them. And when I'm listening to them, it's no different than any of our cell phones, all of us. The incoming calls sometimes gives you a date, and on Summer's phone there is a date that's stated. But there's also indicators of, specifically on Joseph's phone, hey, I just saw the news, you're missing, what's going on? Well, if that's the message, that indicates that that's from February 15th on. That was the second message. Every other message on Joseph's cell phone kind of related to business and that time frame from the 15th on, because there's multiple people who said something about you're missing. The only way they know they're missing from news reports is once I was involved.
And just so we're clear, not a single message from the defendant.
No.
On Summers' voicemail messages, was there any voicemail from the defendant?
No.
Were you able to ascertain the time frames as you did with Joseph's voicemail messages?
I did, and it was unusual because if you're comparing Summers and Joseph's cell phone messages, although from different persons you would think they're a married couple, same friend group, same family group, they would be similar. So in other words, if a family member called Summer, you would think on the same day they would probably try to reach out to Joseph. Well, it didn't match at all, which indicated to me it was likely Joseph's cell phone messages were missing. The messages from the time frame prior to February 15th were missing. Somehow they were deleted. Summer's cell phone had calls from family members, friends, hey, where are you? We're worried about you. We haven't talked to you in 2 days. Very normal for what we would have expected in a missing persons case.
Did you, during the course of your investigation, investigate, or attempt to investigate at least, the financial records, the business, and the McStays?
I did.
Tell us how that works and what you did.
I will. So we just touched on the fact that I got a search warrant for cell phone records. I'd like to add that when I went to get that search warrant for the cell phone records and I talked to the judge, I explained to you that I write the affidavit for a search warrant, I take that warrant to a district attorney. In this case, we had a senior district attorney that worked in the homicide unit in San Diego. I sit with him, he reviews my warrant to make sure that the affidavit is good, true, makes sense, and the judge will likely approve it based on what he's reading. He's just grading it, in other words. Once he gives me the thumbs up, I go to the judge, I present the affidavit and search warrant to the judge. The judge then reviews it, and the judge has to come to a determination that I believe there's probable cause to get this search warrant, but he too has to say, based on your writing, I believe there's probable cause to get this search warrant. When I went the second time, so I had the residential search warrant with the judge and the vehicle search warrant, no issues. I'm coming back days later, asking another judge for a search warrant for the telephones. He gets to read literally the same affidavit from the first search warrant with some additional information based on phones, because now after the residence search, now I have phone numbers. So all that information here goes into this search warrant, plus during the search, I found these phones, I determined these phone numbers, and I want to see these phone records. That judge looked at me and he said, you were awful close to probable cause. I think there's just barely probable cause and I'm going to approve this search warrant. Don't come back to me with another search warrant outside of this family until you have good probable cause for any other investigation. And I said, roger that. I went back and I talked to that senior district attorney in our office, sat down with him, explained to him that I did want to go and I did want to write search warrants for multiple persons in this case that were related to the McStays, including family members and friends. The district attorney told me that he saw the problem and that he wanted to draft legislation to make it easier for a detective.
Objection, non-responsive.
So I guess all of that goes to what was going on with you in your investigation and what you thought you could obtain.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You could obtain or couldn't obtain.
Well, I was pretty much froze for search warrants at that point unless I could find more evidence.
Okay. Now, at some point, did you learn about, we heard testimony from Jennifer Mitchley.
Yes,
She was the neighbor across the street from the McStays.
yes.
Did you send Detective Leibach in particular out to look at that video and collect that video?
I did.
Okay. Why didn't she get a warrant to take the entire video?
I wanted to. This is another example of where I'm froze. So because she's a neighbor, she's a private citizen with private recording in her house, the detective has asked her for consent to collect whatever she'll provide. I specifically asked for us to be able to take her unit and image the whole unit. You already heard from her. She only allowed a certain portion from certain cameras because she had daughters. She wanted to protect their privacy. There were cameras in the residence. She didn't want that disclosed to law enforcement or eventually could be in the public eye. So she gave us what she deemed was okay to release. Even after that, I called her back and said, it's very important that I get the information from that video camera. You're the only video camera on that street. I want it all. And she refused. So now I wanted a search warrant because with a search warrant, she can't refuse. I can go over there and knock on her door and say, I'm collecting, unfortunately, collecting your recorder against your will. I'm going to image it, I'm going to bring it back, and we're going to use it for our investigation. Based on the judge's order, I couldn't do it.
Okay, then back to where we were, your attempts to investigate the financial records, what did you do regarding Earth-inspired products and the McStays?
So just because I can't do it under search warrant doesn't mean I can't ask. So I wanted to know more about the business, Joseph's financial dealings with his personal records, his business records, anything, Summers' personal finances to see if they were in debt, how they got into their house, you name it. So I sent out initially what's called a crime dex. And this is essentially, you have a name for law enforcement, you have a name, you have a social security number and a date of birth. You send that out, it goes to all the major banks essentially across the United States, and it says there's an investigation going on and we want to see, or do you have an account with this person, period. That doesn't give you the account information, it just has the bank say, hey, we're one, we have an account with them. It's sort of like what I just described with cell phones, where you're looking for providers. Now you're looking for who holds accounts for Joseph and Summer McStay. I got that list of where their bank accounts were, where the business accounts were. That eventually would potentially turn into a search warrant. I'd need that information. But on top of that, I can use consensual telephone calls or even going to visit a bank. I did that. I called the financial institutes who held any bank account for Summer or Joseph McStay. I explained to them where we were in the investigation. I explained to them that I didn't have a search warrant, but on the other hand, now I'm wearing the missing persons hat. I'm investigating a missing persons case, and I want to make sure they're okay. Can they just give me verbal indications of what they see in the bank account? Is anyone using the bank account? Is anyone using the ATM cards? Is there money in the account? How much money is in the account? Some banks closed the door on me, and some banks were much more giving. Specifically, Union Bank was giving because there's a...
Objection, not narrative.
Were you able to obtain any information regarding accounts held by the McStays at Union Bank?
Yes.
Tell us about that, please.
So I called Union Bank. I've called Union Bank previous to the McStay case several times. It was a popular bank in the San Diego area. When you call the bank, I'm not just calling a teller at the front desk. I'm calling a representative who deals with accounts for law enforcement. So it's a specific person. That person at that time, her name was April Coronado. April was familiar with me. She knew I was a detective with the San Diego Sheriff's Department. She had helped me with search warrants in the past. I explained to her the case, the investigation up to that point, and April was more forthcoming with information related to Joseph's financial status. So I got quite a bit of information without a search warrant based on consent to help find the McStays.
And were you able to ascertain whether there were any Was there any account activity after the 4th of February that wasn't automated, in other words, an automatic withdrawal?
No.
There was none?
Well, there's activity. Oh, I get what your point is.
Yes.
There was activity past the 4th. There was no in-person activity or nothing that could be related, directly confirmed to Joseph or Summer.
Was that account frozen at some point?
It was frozen, and the reason it was frozen, I remained in contact with April as I went through the records. I'm not a finance crimes expert. I've never worked finance crimes. But I would look at things, and just to get clarification, I would call her back. That went over months. At some point, she said, "Is this family still missing?" And I said, "They are still missing." And she asked me if I thought it was, suspicious. I said, "Of course it's suspicious." And she goes, "I think we're going to go the next step. I'm going to freeze this account." That's not done by law enforcement. That's done by the bank, based on what I told her.
Were you able to obtain Joseph's or Earth Inspired Products PayPal account?
I was.
And was that by letter, or how did that work?
It's letterhead. So again, going back to the real world, some companies request a search warrant. Some companies will talk to you over the phone. PayPal said, if you send us a letterhead request, we will send you a disc with the PayPal account on it. And I did exactly that to get the PayPal records.
And in May of 2010, did you get access to the QuickBooks accounts for Earth Inspired Products?
Same manner as PayPal.
And all that information, really, you said you weren't a financial expert, was forwarded to your financial crimes
I
investigator?
delivered it to the sergeant over in financial crimes for the San Diego Sheriff's Department. He in turn handed it over to a financial crimes detective for review.
During your investigation, were you able to ascertain who the McStay's dentist was?
Yes.
Okay. Why is that important? Why did you do that?
So now I have the McStay's missing. It's been a little while, and my next concern is if they're found, and it ends up being in the manner they're found, I want to make sure that I have everything I can put into law enforcement databases for missing and unidentified persons. One of those things that we look for is dental records, because your teeth and the way your teeth form in your mouth is specific just to you. So if I could get the dental records with dental impressions or x-rays of the dental records, that can be given to the Department of Justice. It can be given to Interpol. Interpol is just another law enforcement resource when people are found or we're looking for people. And let's say they find their remains, they compare the dental records to the dental records I provided from the dentist. That was all done.
And that dentist was Asil, A-S-I-L, Arash, A-R-A-S-H, of Smile Design Dental Group?
Yes.
Is that in San Clemente?
I think so. I don't remember the specific address.
So did you obtain Joseph McStay's dental records from that office?
Yes.
And Summers as
And
well?
Summers.
And what did you do with those records?
I forwarded them to Department of Justice, and they ended up with Interpol. It's all shared database information for dental records, missing and unidentified persons.
In that regard, during the course of this investigation that's ongoing, did you involve other agencies?
Many. Every agency I could think of.
Okay. Now, having found the trooper near the border, we've heard some testimony already about a border crossing video or some kind of border crossing video. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that, please?
So, as a detective, we follow our leads, we follow the evidence, and we chase down every statement and anything anyone ever claims happened. I have to put every one of those things to rest. So now we have the trooper at the border, which would indicate, without a good story behind it, that the McStays are missing, the trooper's at the border, there's nothing in the house I find that's suspicious, so why is the trooper at the border and where's the McStays? Well, there's the last known position of the vehicle. I happen to live in San Diego. I know that people frequently illegally park in those parking lots where the McStay vehicle was, and they illegally park there to walk across the border. So I sent a sergeant and another detective down to the U.S.-Mexico border to inquire with Immigration, Customs, and Border Patrol to find any camera that records on either side of the border and to collect all video for the 8th of February 2010 for future review.
And you found a video of what appears to be 2 adults and 2 small children?
I did, and that took quite a bit of work.
And we've already heard some testimony. You showed that to the family members and others.
Individually, yes.
Did you involve the FBI, in particular the Fugitive Task Force of the FBI?
I did.
Why?
So once I showed the video, now we have a family crossing the border that generally fits the general description. Family members are more in support of that could be my family than they were against that could be my family. I don't know Joseph and Summer McStay or the little boys. I know them mentally, but I've never met them, I've never watched them walk, I've never seen them. So I'm going off of what the family's telling me. So I have some belief that could be the McStays going across the border. For me to continue an investigation across the border, we have 2 detectives on the Sheriff's Department still to this day that are international liaison detectives. I incorporated them too. They work, if I send them across the border, it's going to be Tijuana deep. They're not going much further than Tijuana. However, FBI has all kinds of people in Mexico that work for the FBI in the United States, and I can be in contact with them or work through our international liaison detectives to talk to the FBI in Mexico, and we chase down every lead. And we had a lot of leads in Mexico that I had to put to rest. We had family members that were absolutely convinced that they were in Mexico, Costa Rica, Belize. I chased down every one of those leads, regardless of who told me whatever they wanted to tell me.
And that was kind of leading to one of my next points. All this is going on, you're getting a lot of tips.
Yes, and on top of family, we are getting overwhelmed with tips coming. I was on America's Most Wanted, if you've ever watched that. We solicit tips. So I flew to Washington, I went on America's Most Wanted, I said this family's missing. John Walsh says, hey, call the detective, he's on our hotline now, tips come in. We were on television programs that cycled. They showed once, they showed again, and every time that cycled, we get more tips coming in. I have to put every one of those tips to rest.
And you did that in this case.
I did that.
Did you involve the National Center for Missing and Endangered Children?
Exploited children.
Exploited children, my fault.
I did.
Okay, tell me about that and why you did that.
So we call it NCMEC, N-C-M-E-C. And NCMEC is out of Washington. Because the 2 children were missing, they focus on missing children. That's what NCMEC does. I think they might have reached out to me initially, and right away I said, yes, I want any piece of help I can get. NCMEC was a big participant in that border video because there's no way I could. There was over 100,000 people that walked through that border that day. So if you're looking at a video for 24 hours and you're trying to identify, is it Summer? Is it Joseph? Is it Summer with the children and Joseph is gone? Is it Joseph with the children and Summer is gone? Or is it just Joseph and Summer? You get the dynamic there. We have to literally watch each person walking across that border and decipher it. NCMEC gave me 3 people, different parts of the country, took a copy of my video, took it home and viewed that. We all came back together after some time and determined which ones were most likely.
Fair to say that video is not the best quality, and you don't see the faces of the individuals walking.
It's terrible.
Okay. You see them walking away from the camera.
Yes.
And it's at night,
It's night.
shadows, lights.
Well, the video itself starts in the day. It's a 24-hour period, and during the day the video is actually pretty decent, still the same view. There was another camera that showed a different view. During the day it looked good, but at night it was blacked out. Couldn't see much of anything, so I was left with what I had.
So you're getting all sorts of tips. You get tips from psychics, mediums, all that. You followed up on all that.
More than one.
All right. At the same time, you're also getting calls from customers of Earth-inspired products.
Absolutely.
In June of 2010, in particular June 8th of 2010, were you contacted by a company It's by someone from a company known as Geist Construction.
I was.
And that company, the person from that company gave you certain information. In response to that information, did you call and speak to the defendant?
I did.
Was that on the same day, June 8th?
Yes, June 8th, 2010.
Was that conversation with the defendant recorded?
It was.
To show you what's been marked as Exhibit 583, ask if you recognize that.
I do.
Appears to be initials on it. Are those yours?
My initials.
Is that a recording of the phone call you had with the defendant that was done in response to the information you received from Geist Construction?
Yes.
And did you review that in conjunction with 583A, which is appears to be a transcript?
I did.
And is the recording and the transcript fair and accurate depictions of the conversation you had with the defendant on June 8, 2010?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated that you're from San Diego, you live in San Diego. Drive time on average from Fallbrook to the San Ysidro lot would be what?
It's over 60 miles. If you have no traffic, you're over an hour, easy. You are approaching U.S.-Mexico border, heavy traffic, South Bay of San Diego, heavy traffic. I would say on any normal day, during normal drive times when people are awake, it would be add another half hour onto there. So best scenario, an hour, up to an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Cross?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to talk to you about your assignment and your experience on February of 2010. I know that you said, I believe you've been a detective for 12 years. Did I get that right?
Yes, I'm thinking back. I entered homicide in March of 2008. And prior to that, I was a detective, area detective for 2 full years. And prior to that, I was temporarily assigned as a detective for 6 months. So, so mid-05 is when I became a detective. So 13 plus years.
Okay. And so,
Up to date.
but as a detective in homicide, you said 2008, is that correct?
March of 2008.
Okay, so it had been about close to 2 years,
2 years.
almost 2 years, correct? And how many homicides had you investigated at that point?
I don't have a specific number. When I first entered homicide, I think we were the homicide unit. There were 3 teams of 3 detectives on each unit. We were, it was actually a much busier back then than it is, busier homicide-wise back then than it is now. We're still busy. I think we were averaging 30 to 40 homicides a year. When
My question, detective, is how many did you directly participate in?
trying to work through that. So,
Just in a I don't need an exact number.
60,
Would you say more than 5?
oh, absolutely.
More than 20?
That I actually was involved with?
Yes.
That's probably correct, right about there.
And you were the lead detective on this case, is that correct?
I was.
And how many murder investigations or homicide investigations did you lead in February of 2010?
I would say a third of the potential 20, so 7.
So 7.
I'm guessing.
Okay. And then, so you knew that there were some initial steps that you had to take when you first responded on the 15th of February, correct?
Absolutely.
Because you yourself said it had been 11 days, and your protocol was after 10 days in the missing person situation, homicide is automatically alerted. At least that was the policy back then.
It was the policy back then. You are correct with your statement.
So when you go into it, you're thinking homicide. That's what you're thinking, because that's why you have that policy, correct?
I think that your statement, you're thinking homicide, is inaccurate. By no means do I want it to be a homicide, I want it to be a missing persons case.
It's not what you want. The precautions you take are for a homicide investigation.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay. So, would you say that securing the scene, or securing, in this case, the house, would be an important part of that?
Securing the initial response by the patrol deputy and me?
Correct. In other words, let me ask it a different way. If you're going to a potential scene where they could be involved in a homicide, don't you want to secure it so that people can't go in freely and so forth?
Yes, okay, I can answer this.
Sure.
If I know it's a homicide, that scene's been secured long before I arrive. That's patrol's responsibility. Multiple levels of perimeters are set. People are posted to make sure no one enters or exits. That's because it's a known homicide. When I respond to assist a patrol deputy in a missing persons investigation, I'm going in there to just talk to the deputy, find out what he knows, and in this case, it was very good that Michael McStay was there so I could interview him and react from there. We always follow leads and statements and evidence. After I did the preliminary sweep of the residence, just walking in with my gun out to make sure no bad guys are in there and no people are injured in there, and I exit the residence, I have no right to be in that residence. None. I would have to have a search warrant to go back into that residence within any time after that. Because of that, I didn't have probable cause to get a search warrant. I would not secure that residence. It's not my place and not legally what I could do.
But you're going in to take the precautions, as you testified to, that you're taking the precautions as if it were a homicide. That's the way you have to treat the scene, correct?
I think I covered that when I explained how I enter a house. We're going in with the patrol deputy. His eyes are, I guarantee you, he's specifically looking for what I said. For people that were injured, bad guys. I'm going in, and my legal right to go into that house is exactly the same as that patrol deputy. I just happen to be the second person we always go in twos. I've explained that. Now, when I'm going in, I do have the knowledge that this could potentially be suspicious, so my eyeballs have the right to look and learn and view, but that doesn't give me a legal right to change that into a homicide scene unless I see something that would change it that way. So it's a missing persons case.
So you authored a search warrant affidavit
I did.
after the 15th, did you not?
Yes,
Okay. And when did you do that? Like right after, or did you wait?
not immediately.
So what would you say?
Uh,
Because you went in on the 19th on the search warrant, right?
we did.
So the judge had already signed it prior to the 19th, correct?
I believe we signed it on the 19th.
Okay, so you had to author your declaration prior to that, correct?
Yes, so what happened, and we've already heard from my previous testimony, on the 15th, I go in the evening, go there, do my actions, continually work, talking to Michael McStay, talking to family members, trying to figure out where the McStays are. As I'm doing that, everybody's statement matters, and all these statements are coming in, and the statements are, as they got deeper and deeper, got more and more towards pointing to this isn't normal. I already told you initially, Michael McStay said, yeah, they might be on vacation. They've done this before. Well, there's your statement where you couldn't get a search warrant if you tried. But as I talked to more and more people, they said, hey, this is unusual. I talked to MacGyver, I talked to many family members. And I started to go, no, this isn't typical. That armed me with, maybe it's not within their nature to do exactly this. So now we are getting the probable cause to get a search warrant. It took 4 days to get all that information so I could author a search warrant saying there's probably a crime that was committed. This family would be around if it hadn't happened that way. Does that answer your question?
Not really, but I'm gonna try again. I know it's gonna be tough to stop you once you get going, so I just let you finish. All right.
Thank
But
you.
my question is, you wanted that scene secured because you told Susan, right, not to go in, and when you found out that she was in there, you told her to stop what she was doing and get out.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you wanted that secured, correct?
Yes, but I had no legal right to do that.
Okay. So if Susan Blake testified that you gave her permission to go into the house on the 16th, that would not be accurate?
That's not accurate.
Okay. Did she ever call you and tell you she was going into the house on the 16th?
She called me while she was in the house, while she was cleaning, and told me that Michael had taken the computer, she was cleaning, MacGyver was there, and that was the very first time I spoke to Susan, and I said, stop it.
So if Michael testified that you gave him permission to take the computer, that would also be inaccurate?
Your word, the way you phrased it, is inaccurate. I spoke to Michael, I told Michael
Hold on, let me just be clear. When did you speak to him? What conversation are you referring to and when?
on the 15th,
Okay.
his initial interview with me. I told Michael most of the interview in this case, missing persons case, is listening to Michael. I have questions for Michael that might bring me information that would lead me in a different direction. But during that interview, I told Michael, I hope your family's missing and I'm going to do whatever I can do to find them, but please don't disturb anything in the house, you know, it could affect the outcome of evidence, you know. On the other hand, I did tell Michael, if you find any documents, information, bank records, phone records, can you get into their phone records, please provide them to me so it will assist in my investigation, because that's kind of what we have to do in a missing persons case. So there was an admonishment, but I didn't tell him you can't go into the house. I did not.
You weren't property specific, but you were pretty clear that he shouldn't go in and disturb anything, correct?
Right, I told him the danger of evidence destruction.
So if he did, so again, back to my question, if he said that you gave him permission to take the computer, that would be not accurate.
That's not accurate.
Okay. So you wanted it secured, correct?
I would have liked it secured.
What precautions did you take after the 15th, after your interview at night, when you interviewed Mr. McStay and Ms. Blake at the residence in your patrol vehicles? What steps did you take to secure the scene if you didn't want anyone there?
Objection states the testimony, Michael wasn't there.
Was Michael there on the
Blake wasn't
15th?
there.
I'm sorry?
Miss Blake wasn't there.
Was Ms. Blake there on the 15th and you interviewed her not in your patrol vehicle, but another patrol vehicle?
No.
Okay. When was Ms. Blake interviewed?
I think she was initially interviewed by Detective Helen, and I don't know when that interview was. I can make an educated guess that it would have been on the 16th, probably at a residence, because I assign other detectives to do work because I can't do it all.
So on the 15th, so I'm just trying to be clear, at the Fallbrook residence on the 15th of February 2010,
Yes.
you're saying that Ms. Susan Blake was not at the residence being interviewed like Mike McStay was?
If she was, it was at my direction to have her interviewed, but I don't specifically remember Susan being there. I didn't talk to her.
So when you left on the 15th in the evening, because it was at night by the time you finished with Michael McStay, correct?
Right.
And you had already been at the residence for at least a few hours, I would say, correct? After you did your
I think that's
walkthrough,
fair because of the interview with Michael. That's fair.
and there was multiple law enforcement officers there, correct? Not just you.
Yeah, a handful.
And you guys finished the interview with Michael McStay, and then you left, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were going to author a search warrant affidavit to get a warrant to go into the house, is that correct?
I didn't have enough probable cause at the point you're talking about to author an affidavit for a search warrant. My mind, I wanted to get there to make, for sure, that's my job.
Okay.
But
So,
I wasn't there.
but you had it signed, you had your affidavit signed prior to the 19th, correct? So we're only talking about from the 15th in the evening, and then the judge signed it on the 19th. So
4 days in the evolution of a crime is a huge amount of time.
I don't disagree. So what did you do? What additional information did you get that caused you to author the affidavit?
The specific, I don't know. Generally, it was the totality of statements from family members, friends, and the general behavior of the McStay family versus the general behavior. This was out of context for them. That's really all I had to say. It was suspicious.
So there was really nothing, no additional evidence?
There was no smoking gun.
Okay. What you did, well, when you told Ms. Blake to leave the residence, did you know how much work she had done in the house?
No idea.
So on the 16th, when you told her to leave, did that expedite your efforts to get the warrant? Did you say, hey, that's a problem if people are going to be going into that house?
I did tell her that, and just to be clear, I didn't order her out of the residence. I can't. That's her family's residence. I definitely forcefully asked her to stop and to have Michael put the computer back, because my mindset was I wanted to get a warrant to go into that residence to verify nothing had happened in the residence.
So you said you interviewed family members in the intervening time, is that correct?
Yes.
And you actually got to walk through the residence on the 15th, is that correct?
Clearing the residence. Walk through is the wrong word. Clearing the residence is what I got to do.
And as a trained detective, obviously you're looking for evidence, you're looking for signs of something, correct?
I did.
And at least in that initial, whatever you want to call it, welfare check, can we call it? What should we call it?
That's fair. It's a welfare check.
Okay. In that initial welfare check, you didn't see anything that caused you to have any type of suspicion?
I thought the residence was very unusual because there was a lack of furniture, and we've seen the photographs. Very hard for me to tell if there was a struggle because it was totally disrupted by home improvement. But other than that, I didn't see anything of evidentiary value that would have given me the legal ability to lock that down and get a search warrant.
Did you also look in the backyard? Were you able to go into the backyard and the sides of the house?
On the 15th, I don't remember if I specifically did. The deputy cleared it. I don't have specific memory of going back there, but I'm sure I did.
But you remember?
Actually, I did, because I remember going back there and seeing the shed and some dog food that was open or something.
Okay. And did Michael tell you about the window that he went through? Did you already know that information when you went back there?
No,
Okay. So you didn't look at the window or anything at that point?
it wasn't noted.
Okay. But did you check the condition of the dogs at that point? Or make at least a visual observation that the dogs were there, what their general condition was?
I have very vague memory of the dogs, so I don't think I can answer your question from memory. I believe they were there on the 15th, but I'm not even 100% sure of that. I've seen so many photographs and talked to so many family members about the dogs that my memory and what I know are combined.
You did testify that you saw a bag of food, though,
I
correct?
did. I absolutely saw a bag of food that was split open.
Did it look like someone had split it open intentionally, or did it look like the dogs got to it and split it open?
A little of both.
Okay. So maybe it had been open and the dogs finished the job.
It looked unusual to me only in the fact that it was a large bag of dog food, dry dog food, and I think it was split diagonally through the middle, basically. I wish I had a picture to see it, but my memory, I'm going from memory. It looked like, to me, it looked like somebody had left a large bag for the dogs to eat on for some period of time instead of just putting dog food into a bowl.
Do you know when you were looking around the house or in the backyard, were you able to try to look into the windows to see if you could see anything from that perspective?
Oh, I'm sure I looked out the windows and at everything. Yes, the answer is yes.
Do you know whether you did that, was it dark outside when you did that?
When I first got to the residence and we did the clearing, it was I think it had already started to get dark, or it was dark. It was evening. It was dinner time. but I don't specifically remember the condition of the son.
Okay. Well, when you were in the backyard and you're looking around, you said you saw the dog food. Was it dark at that point?
I don't remember.
Okay. When you first got there, it was still light outside, correct?
I don't even know that, because you're really talking about, I'm familiar with San Diego, and that's right about sunset, and there's, you got about a half hour, 45 minutes, sun going down, I don't know.
Do you know whether or not you turned on lights, or you have to be routinely turned on lights?
No, we traditionally don't do that when we clear a house. We'll go in with flashlights, and I don't remember carrying a flashlight. So either I was using, it wasn't pitch black in there.
You took written notes, correct? In this case?
Many.
Okay. Is there any, with reviewing those notes, refresh your recollection as to what you did in that initial clearing or welfare check?
Yes, I haven't seen my notes in years.
Okay. Do you have them with you?
Oh, no. There's thousands of pages of investigation in this case.
I'm going to show you know what a CAD report is, correct?
Yes, computer assisted display.
Okay, we're going to dig that up and I'm going to show you. You aren't
I
going to
have
have a
it.
morning break at this point?
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and take our morning recess this time, 15 minutes. Keep in mind we have been issued previously given to you, not perform or express any opinions by the state, not to discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. And again, that was not discussing anything about the case, any of the witnesses, testimony, exhibits, parties, or attorneys. And we'll see everyone back in about 15 minutes.